Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Hello there, and welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. Welcome, everybody, to, as you pointed out before we started, episode 450.
Yeah. A thing that I definitely knew when preparing this episode today.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't usually think too much about the number when you're making the show, but, 450, it's a big number. It's a big fucking number. And, Nile, who has me on webcam, can see. You at home can't see. So maybe Nile could just describe to everybody at home. Look at my eyes. Look at my dead eyes. Look at, my pallid complexion, my dead face, my sort of, hopelessness. If you could you describe the look in my eyes that sort of shows how world weary I've become after 450 episodes of a podcast?
Yeah, have you ever been out in public and a child either loses the ice cream from the top of their cone, or maybe their balloon floats off into the distance?
Yes,
and
we've all seen this.
They don't cry, but they're just like, there's this deep sadness that crosses over their face for a second.
Yeah.
That's kind of Kyle's default state. There's like a shattered visage to him that I think is impressive, honestly.
Thank you. Now, unlike one of those children, I am crying a little bit right now.
But that's just always, that's your default state. Yeah.
It's actually why we typically have not done, we've floated the idea of maybe we could do a live show sometime. Everybody would just see me in tears at all times.
Yeah.
You would just be able to finally see that behind the microphone. There's just this helpless soul that is grasping for his humanity.
It's true.
And is crying. So, all that being said, that's why I'm going to be keeping it positive this episode. I'm going to kind of keep it on the up and up. I'm going to try and keep the energy high. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't fucking say it, And that's kind of the energy. Here's the thing. I've been learning about this, okay? And I've been talking with you a bunch about this. I've been reading this book that's all about manifesting energy. It's all about manifest. I think so. It's where you take a thing and you say, I'm going to choose to look at that in a good way. Oh, this guy, I was walking around the other day. This guy pulled out a baby kitten and shot it with a crossbow in front of me. And I said, well, I got to put a positive spin on that.
Yeah,
I
you really got to look on the bright side.
That cat is going to be reincarnated as a much nicer cat. And this guy's probably venting some frustrations. This is a dark joke I'm making, but you see what I'm saying.
It's par for the course lately. I think, I'm wondering at what point do I have to stage an intervention on Kyle's opening podcast bits, because usually it's either about how the podcast is going to be bad. Or how, or it's just something really dark. I think that maybe going forward, maybe we'll start running through the intros beforehand.
Is why I'm saying I'm coming into this one with a positive attitude, put a positive spin on anything, manifest destiny, right? It's like,
fuck off.
You can manifest these positive energies in your life if you just take something, and if something looks fucking stupid or sucks, you say skip it. I'm choosing to look at this one positively.
Yeah.
and it changes your whole outlook on everything. So hopefully you have some really positive story for me today. Actually, I do think we have an email. Is that?
Oh, do we?
Yeah, I think so. Is that acceptable? Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to mess with your energy. If you're trying to bring a particular energy, it's like we don't need to get the third person in the room, and the third person being sort of like the audience stand-in through the email. But
I thought the third person was New York City.
And New York City. Well, that's okay. So maybe fourth person, right? But no, we do have an email. If that's cool with you,
yeah.
This is from Bradley, Nile.
Hi, Bradley.
It says, "Hey guys, Brad the dinosaur scientist here again to feed you another email. So if you remember, we have a dinosaur scientist who listens to the show, which I appreciate. Again, taking a negative thing." A dinosaur scientist spending his time on our podcast and spin it into a positive thing. A dinosaur scientist is willing to take some of his precious time to listen to our show. And really that one comes down to the tone in which I say it.
Yeah. It's a bit of a fuck your documentary situation.
Yeah. So Brad says, as part of my work, I do science communication projects to help educate the public about paleontology and natural history. And one of the main things that I do involves taking fossils and replicas to communities without museums and setting them up in public spaces like libraries or community centers to give people access to these resources. That's super cool. I did not know such a thing existed. A big part of this is me being there as well to answer people's questions, which is almost always a blast and honestly one of my favorite things about the job. But every now and then you do get some individuals and some weird questions. Okay, here we go. So here comes the negativity. We'll have to find a positive spin for this.
Yeah.
Brad says, a few years ago, there was a man at one of these events who waved me over and began excitedly asking me if I was aware that aliens had genetically engineered dinosaurs as biological weapons to use against other aliens and to clear the planet.
No, but that sounds sick as fuck.
That does sound kind of cool, to be honest. And there's the positive spin is how cool that is.
Yeah.
And to clear their planet for their purposes. Just trying to be polite, I just awkwardly laughed and told him that I hadn't ever seen any evidence of that, but that it might make for a good movie. See, there you go. You are taking something negative, this asshole coming up to you, and spinning it in a positive.
That is such good customer service reactions. Can I just quickly say, as someone who has to take someone has to take phone calls as part of their job, that is such like, you thought so quickly on your feet of like how to spin that in a way that A, doesn't make you sound like you're going to lose your job, and B, not anger this man, hopefully. So congrats. That was awesome.
Yeah. He then doubled down. Oh boy. Going in way more detail about how and why they did it, how they had done it multiple times and would do it again, and about shape-shifting reptilian aliens controlling the world. I finally managed to end this super weird conversation when a bunch of kids ran up to me and started asking me their questions, and he drifted off and left not long after that. When I listened to the episode about truthism, it gave me a flashback to this encounter, and now I know where he apparently got all his bizarre information from. Hopefully I'll be better prepared for the next encounter thanks to you guys. Well, it sounds like you were pretty prepared. And I gotta say, I did not expect the amount of like listener response we would have to truthism.
Yeah, it seemed to strike a chord.
I guess so. It does sort of seem like, though, that most people either have a family member or have encountered the kind of person who would, create truthism.com, I guess. I mean, I've kind of had a personal experience with people like that before. I've run into it, but some people will just directly have a family member or whatever, just, admit to being a QAnon type or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So good for you for taking a very awkward encounter and spinning it. This is exactly the kind of thing that I was talking about with my fucked up dark joke about positivity up at the start of this episode. So we'll have to try and keep that energy going along.
Yeah, you did a good segue into your own thing here, which is like you kind of set yourself up, which is good to do.
I guess so.
All right.
So thank you, Brad, as always. Very much appreciate. We do have one other email that's very short.
Okay.
that I would like to mention. This is from Kev. This is a quick one, okay? Here's what it says. Hey guys, longtime listener, first time emailer. The people yearn for more Garrett. Keep it up, guys. Love the podcast. Best, Kevin. So, Garrett, if you're listening, and I know you're not, we'll get him back on here soon. We've actually talked off mic before about how we need to get him on soon, but life's just been busy. But Garrett will return. That is a promise.
Yeah. Garrett's not off. He will come back.
Oh yeah.
We'll just try to prioritize that a little heavier, and we'll try to do that soon. Okay. So Kyle, do you want to get started?
Sure. I mean, I've gone on about all this other bullshit long enough. I figured we might as well get into it.
All right. So this week, this is another one of my Nile has a question that I end up like trying to figure something out for myself because I think I should know it, and end up doing a podcast about it.
Yeah.
So this week I went into to wonder what the fuck is Mu or Mu?
Oh,
the lost continent.
The lost continent of Mu. Now, speaking of Mu, I don't know if you just heard that, but the cat that lives in my house, Parky, did just try to break into the office and meowed loud as fuck at the door. So that kind of fit in. You didn't make it in, so I don't know if the mic actually picked it up, but he did just do that right on time.
All right.
Mu. I mean, I know we've done Lost Continent stuff, and it's been a while. You've covered that stuff almost exclusively.
Yeah, we've done an Atlantis thing. We've done Lemuria, which Lemuria is, they're tied, depending on who you ask, which is part of the thing. Because, like, depending on where you look, Mu is considered either the same thing as Lemuria or tied to it somehow, or somewhere entirely different, an entirely different continent. And so, like, I thought like originally that, it's just another name for Lemuria. And that's like half true. Like that's
sure.
To like half of the people you ask, that is what they will say. So I ended up just kind of trying to go down. I found the story specifically. There's kind of a person tied to a lot of the Mu stuff, whose name's James Churchward, who will eventually be known as Colonel James Churchward, despite I was not able to find if he actually was ever a colonel. It seems to be a self-given nickname, which is always fun.
Wait, sorry. What's his full name?
So his actual name is James Churchward.
Okay. But you say he pretends to have a military rank.
He at one point starts being referred to as Colonel James Churchward. And while I think I was able to find that he did serve in the, what do they call it? It's like the merchants, like the royal, he was part of the British Royal Merchants Navy or whatever the fuck. Like he was basically a non-combatant soldier for a little bit in India. I think, as far as I can confirm, and he may or may not, depending on who you ask, including, I think his daughter says that he also worked for British intelligence, which is a thing that I will have to try to unpack in the future, because I don't know what that means in when you tie it into everything else that is on in his life. I also am not certain that's true, because this guy seems to have a loose idea of some of his accomplishments. But he is one of the big people in terms of trying to get the idea of Mu established. He didn't start it. He didn't like originally quote find it, but he was one of the main people that really, he wrote a total of about 5 books on the subject. And so is one of the most recognized people in the field.
Okay. Let me get this straight. This guy, Chad Warden, was not content with just the stolen valor of the British military. He also had to stamp his name on the Mu mythology. He also had to get deeply ingrained in that, and also maybe was related to intelligence, as you said. But
yeah,
Okay.
Well, and that's not even that. There's like a whole other side to his life that is weirdly like how he funded his expeditions is fucking fascinating to me, because it involves like trying to basically sue the U.S. government over like steel technology, because he held a bunch of patents on processes for making certain types of steel that was then he invented a whole type of steel supposedly. We'll get into this, that then was the U.S. government used like a knockoff version of to build a bunch of stuff, and he like sued the government for patent infringement and was able to like fund a lot of his expeditions to try to learn about Mu.
Wow. That's ironically, being a British man, maybe the most American way to fund your expeditions to made up lost continents.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. He also like, so let's just get into it. So, what is Mu? Mu is a supposed ancient lost continent, which existed, it sank probably around like 12,000 years ago. If you, depending on who you ask, like this is all something that, is disputed depending on who you look to. And was originally kind of established despite, there's like a kind of asterisk to this, but the guy who is generally credited as coming up with the idea of Mu is a guy named Augustus Plongeon, who lived from 1825 to 1908. And he supposedly got the name from a translation of this text called the where is it in my notes? The Trelawney manuscript. Which is currently held in the British Museum if you want to go find it.
I mean, of course.
And this is a document from approximately 4,000 years previous that references a sunken continent of Mu. And that was originally translated by another guy named that I have his name somewhere else in my notes. So you can some people cite that translator as the guy that, quote, discovered Mu. But Augustus Plongeon is generally considered the first person to really, and he's the first person to really write about the subject.
How do you spell Plongeon? Because it just sounds made up.
It's Le, and then Plongeon is Plongeon.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So he died in 1908, and he wrote 2 books on the subject, and he also, I think he also wrote a little bit about Lemuria as like an analog. I think they were kind of tied at that point. So he wrote about it, and then he became friends with James Churchward towards the end of his life, and Churchward kind of took over the study into Mu. So Plongeon was kind of an explorer of his own merits, and did a lot of time in the Yucatan region and studying Mayan ruins near Chichen Itza. And this is where he claims to have found these ancient Mayan writings that were then translated to talk about Mu. Here he is, the original translator, Charles Etienne Brasseur de Bourbourg, is the guy that originally translated supposedly mistranslated, by the way. A lot of these things are based on really imperfect translations of Mayan texts that a lot of times, like, there's stuff that you'll find that, especially when you get into the Churchward's like later books, where I don't translate Mayan, but from people that I was reading that supposedly know this stuff, he was taking like ornamental design work and translating it as language to like fit what he was doing. So like these hieroglyphs would have these like ornamental like squares and rectangles around them, and he made rectangles. Yeah, they weren't words.
Okay.
And he made the rectangle like a super important text iconography for Mu in his writings and his translations. And that is like one of the core things that just like, yeah, this is absolute bullshit. Like this is not a thing that people will use to kind of attack a lot of his works. So
a lost continent just feels like one of those mythological ideas that won't go away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I don't know whether this is the like specific point, but I always just think of how at one point Plato illustrates a particular story in one of his dialogues using the myth of Atlantis.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily meant to be some literal, like, there was this, it's a mythological story even back then to like express a particular idea, which is kind of what mythology is intended to do, just broadly speaking. So it's another one of those things that just seems to stick around in a lot of different cultures. But it's also crazy to me to think that like was there a real Mayan like mythology of an ancient lost city, or is it this guy just like used the Mayan stuff as a convenience to promote his own like story? Do you see what I'm saying?
Plongeon, his whole thing was that Mu was the predecessor people for both the Mayans and the Egyptians. So when Mu sank, the people left those left Mu and went to those two places because of how everything was arranged at the time. Was there an actual thing that he was pulling on? I think that there is like an offhanded comment. Like I don't know the actual literal correct Mayan translation of the things that they're referencing. I don't know if those things actually exist. But I think there is some sort of like, reference to some. It might be a reference to actually Pangea or something like there. But like
Sure.
there's when you look up stuff about Lemuria a lot of times is linked to this land bridge that sunk. In how like there used to be a land bridge between like Alaska and Russia. There is something like that is kind of linked to. So I think it might be something more like that it's referring to, not like a full blown lost continent. I believe that is an erroneous translation by Borborg. But I also haven't been able to corroborate Mayan translation super well.
I mean, I think though, if you look back at history, or let's say you're a Mayan who hears this story of the land bridge or whatever, maybe your first thought is just like, fuck, there were probably people on that thing. Did they know?
Yeah.
And then you have to write a whole story about it, I don't know. That's interesting. I have to assume that there are some ancient, maybe prehistory like groups of humans that were. I could be showing my ass here because I can't remember if Pangea does that line up with our estimate of when humans were on the earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So were
I honestly
humans
don't
displaced? Know. I don't really remember the timeline there. So maybe it's just, or even if you find evidence of something like a land bridge in your studying of the area, you can develop a whole mythology from that,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how Plongeon, he writes two books. One is Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayans and the Quiches, which I guess is an older alternate name for the Mayan people. I had to look that up because I was wondering if this is a strange,
You wanted to make sure it wasn't some sort of slur.
Well, that or he was sneaking in some recipes. It's because it's just spelled like quiches, the pastry.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but then he also wrote a book called Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx, which is from 1896, which is Queen Mu was kind of this royal figure that he hypothesized about and kind of supposedly he was saying this was real. But Queen Mu was one of the royals when the cataclysm happened, and she's the one that fled to Egypt and founded kind of the foremother of the Egyptian civilization. Now, I don't know. This is all supposedly coming from these codexes that he's translating and his studies going around the Yucatan Peninsula. and Chichen Itza and all that kind of stuff.
I can't hear Yucatan without thinking of Yucatan Suck a Man.
Yeah, I kind of wondered how many times you would say that across this episode.
Also, like, I feel like I know so little about Egypt mythology and Egypt, like history of Egypt stuff, even though it features heavily in conspiracy and UFO shit, to the point where I feel bad that I don't know much about it, so that I can't, tell a lot of the bullshit from the actual truth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe I just got to read some Egyptology shit so I can at least be brushed up on some of that stuff and know when these people are making up nonsense.
At this point, I probably should do that too, because I did read like a whole Ancient Aliens book that like had that is just totally bastardizing both Egypt stuff and Sumerian stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, and then doing all this kind of thing, it would probably be good to have like a basic world history textbook that I can check on.
I have this book. So like one of the few ancient history things that I actually have a little bit of knowledge on is ancient Greek. And I have this book that I think is pulling from, I want to say, who's the author of Chariots of the Gods? It was, I think
Graham Hancock.
Well, it's pulling from Sitchin, I believe.
Oh, Sitchin, yeah.
Zechariah Sitchin. I have this book, and I think a couple other authors, I think, but it's specifically I'm scared to read it because I know it's going to piss me off, but it is evidence of ancient aliens in ancient Greece. And I really, really want to read it and pull an episode out of it, and try and use what little I do actually know about ancient Greek stuff to be able to talk about it. But I know it's going to drive me fucking crazy reading it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be nonsense, but could be fun.
I mean, reading the Sitchin book, there were times where it's just like, I mean, sure, fuck it. Do whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to say,
You're writing fan fiction at this point. Have fun.
Yes. That's all the ancient aliens shit is like that.
Oh man. So there's supposedly, even towards the end of that second book, you find out that Queen Mu actually not only traveled to Egypt, but was also literally Isis, the Egyptian god.
She was also she had the biggest collection of FLAC files of all of the favorite albums of Mu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had the fucking Godspeed You Black Emperor demo before everybody else on FLAC files.
All lights fucked on the Harry Amp drooling a decade before everybody
I wasn't
going to
be able to pull the name.
Sorry. That was another bad joke that I just had to make for the three people who will get it maybe.
That's what we're here for. So yeah, like Le Plongeon kind of really got the ball rolling on all this stuff. As far as I can tell, the other guy, Borborg, brought some of the occult into it originally, because he was kind of tied into some of the kind of more occult elements of kind of, the stuff that later Blavatsky would get into with Mu and everything.
Yeah.
So Borborg might be responsible for at least some of that stuff, but that also comes from Churchward, who was a Freemason, and also dealt in those things.
If you think about it, this Plongeon guy sort of began he was the beginning of starting a new world of rewriting history, of coming up with new histories that are not necessarily based on reality, but creating a new world, a Neon Genesis Plongeon, if you will.
God damn it. All right, we got to talk about goddamn James Churchward, aka the Colonel himself.
Yep.
White
Chad Warden. Sorry, go ahead.
He was an author of what's funny is he started out as an author of, I think his first book was on fishing in Maine. And then he took a steep turn and started to write about Mu, and wrote like 5 books on the subject.
Yeah,
which
I
literally
his fishing books. He got a little off the rails when he started talking about lost continents. I just wanted to catch grouper.
Yeah, I just wanted to know where the best fishing spots were in the fucking Bay of Maine. So he kind of took over, like I said earlier. He took over the plot after Plongeon died in 1908. He was a friend of Plongeon during his life, and spent some time with him. Seemed to spend a decent amount of time with him. They were pretty close. And so Churchward is kind of a disciple of Plongeon in that way. And what's funny is I found out they put out a like hardcover deluxe collection book of all of Churchward's books on Moo in like 1996. There's like a hardcover like nice edition that you can get. It's out of print on Amazon and everywhere. But it like for some reason these books from like 1932 to 1936 got a kind of swanky reissue in 96. I don't know why.
That's so weird. Do you know who put them out? Like what
No, I didn't dig too hard on that, but we could probably find out.
That'd be cool, but they're probably just like worth money now, right?
Yeah,
I'd have to assume.
Probably. So I mentioned he's an inventor. Here's the thing I was talking about earlier. He invented a thing called NCV steel and had many patents on it. You can actually find a timeline of his life which lists all of the patents that he got and when and what they're for. And he had a lot of patents regarding the manufacture and foundation of NCV steel, which is a thing that was used in World War I for manufacturing a lot of weaponry and everything. And it led to an entire patent war that I have some more information later. But that is how he and his lawyer friend, that's how they stayed afloat, was like this patent war over this invention that he had that was like, I guess, pretty important in World War I.
Huh. Okay.
So, and there's even a twist about this NCV steel, which I cannot corroborate exactly, but it may or may not have been handed down to him by the Moo people.
Okay.
So,
I mean, this would explain why, jet fuel can't melt steel beams if they're getting mystical Moo metal.
Yeah, they're getting that Moo metal. So he literally he had a patent attorney and lifelong friend named Percy Tate Griffith, who is who was like by his side through a lot of this stuff. I don't think he was as actively involved in the occult type stuff, but was like fully just helping out with all of this stuff throughout his life. And they won $275,000 for the Colonel in a patent infringement case against Carnegie Steel in 1910, and $1 million judgment against Bethlehem Steel in 1915.
Jesus, what the fuck? Oh, okay, this story has had so many fake names, by the way.
Yeah.
I just want to say that. And Moo Metal also made me think of True Moo. Do you remember True Moo milk?
The milk? Yeah, I do.
It made me think remember how they would have like variants of True Moo during the holidays?
Mm-hmm.
It would be like, you could get a
banana
strawberry
milk and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, or like Halloween had like the orange creamsicle orange milk.
I never drank that stuff.
That was the only one that I liked, but I typically did not drink milk, but which explains, how I got so short.
Yeah.
But it made me think, what if there was a variant that was like a metallic silver, like it looked like mercury, but it was milk?
Mm-hmm.
And how cool that would have been. And I probably would have drank milk back then. I would have gotten a couple inches taller if I drank the Moo Metal.
I think you actually would have just really gone down. Do you remember that show, The Secret Life of Alex Mack?
No, I don't remember that at all.
It was a show about a teen that could turn into a puddle of like metal goo, and was like,
God,
she could like go on, so she'd like run away from people who were chasing her and
You're unlocking a memory for me right now. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. So I was gonna say that it seems like you're just kind of like chugging Alex Mack there.
Yeah, maybe. Let you get a sip of Alex Mack and grow big and strong. That's kind of the idea.
I'm pretty sure that was the name.
Well, now look, you keep going. I'm gonna look up the show for you. and I'll be able to confirm whether or
So-
not that's true.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and say some other stuff about Churchward. So Churchward also
It is called Alex Mack.
yeah
The secret world of Alex Mack. Holy shit! I haven't thought about this in so long. I am looking at a really funny thumbnail of her, and her face is painted bright gold.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of funny. You pulled this from the ether. My brain did not have space for this, and you reallocated that space.
Yeah,
like a
congrats. I just
computer.
knocked out one of your other memories.
That's insane. Yeah,
let's hope that wasn't
there
important.
goes some of my earliest childhood memories, because this one just shoved them out of there. What the fuck?
I forgot this. He's a 33rd degree Mason, which, as you remember, is pretty fucking high up there. But he also is supposedly psychic, which he was taught by some monks in India who he also got some tablets of the Mayan civilization stuff from. That's kind of his whole thing, is like he went to India, met with these monks who had tablets and stuff and could like commune with these people. And so he learned psychic skills there that were not parlor tricks. A thing that I was reading wanted me to be very clear to say.
Well, there's a distinction that's important there. Parlor tricks and real magic.
He was actually psychic because he had the lost techniques of the sunken continent of Mu. And yeah, it's the little postscript on P2 Griffith, the guy, the patent clerk, is that after Churchward's death in 1937, he wrote supposedly, I don't know why they're including this detail, 62,000 word biography called My Friend Churchy and His Sunken Continent of Mu, which sounds like a children's book. But like, so these guys were close enough friends that the guy just like wrote a cute's pet name biography about his friend and his lifelong quest for this sunken continent, which I just think is like interesting.
Wow.
One of those weird, seem to be actual friends, you know?
Hey, you have told me a bunch of information this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got to return the favor. I think it's time for me to give you some info. Are you ready for some info?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The UK release of the series The Secret Role of Alex Mack DVD boxed set, it received a rating of 15 from the British Board of Film Classification, which is a rating considered restrictive, particularly since the series was initially aimed at preteens. It was eventually revealed by the BBFC that the 15 rating was applied to the box set because of a season 1 episode called Shock Value, where Alex is seen climbing into a clothes dryer from the pilot. According to BBFC, the presentation of this behavior is comic and no negative consequences are shown, which would warn young viewers of the potential dangers of hiding in such appliances. While fatal incidents of children trapped in washing machines or fridges are rare, there remains sufficient cause for serious concern.
So there is a reason that's the thing they were worried about with that Sonic interstitial warning thing.
Sonic
it's literally
says,
like, don't climb in the dryer.
Hey, you want to hear something fucked up that my mom tells me about? Yeah. She locked one of her brothers in the freezer once when she was a kid.
Wow.
And they left him behind, and they left the house. She was a little kid. She didn't, it wasn't a malicious thing as I understand it. But apparently, like, she told her parents after they had left the house, so they had to turn around and go get him out.
Okay.
So he's fine. He survived. But if they had left him there, he probably would have become a big ice cube. So
yeah, that would have been unfortunate. And
not really anything
really bad
funny about that. He's still
mom.
around. He's fine. He's psychologically damaged from the event, but he's fine now.
Hasn't gone near a freezer since, but he's doing okay.
Anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to trample over your whole thing about Moo. I just wanted to drop some Alex Mack facts on you.
I mean, that's what people come here for, is for information about the British releases of 90s Nickelodeon TV shows.
The whole show from 94 to 98 is available on the Internet Archive, so I know what I'm doing with the rest of my evening.
Hell yeah. All right, so Churchward, here it is. So he was in the British Army as part of the Colonel of Engineers, which maybe where he got the Colonel denomination thing there. But... so he And then he moved to and married a woman in India at the age of 20 and had a son there in 1872. And he was in charge of a tea plantation in India for some years. And he befriended a rishi at a temple school monastery, which is where he learned about Mu from these knuckle tablets of clay, which were written in the language of the ancient Mayans, known as Naga. And these tablets were supposedly from around the time of the destruction of Mu, between 12 and 14,000 years ago. So, add whatever for that, since this is 1872. So supposedly there were 10,000 8x10 tablets, half of which were transported from Mu to this library. And as of 1927, the temple monastery that he was going to had between 8,000 and 9,000 of them, with the rest of them being spread among 6 other temples. So I don't know what these tablets actually are, or if we have what they're, because they're claimed to be written in this language that is pre-Mayan. I don't know if that's true.
Is there any physical evidence of these tablets, or is it all?
I have not seen them.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's supposedly there were some other supposedly there are other texts that corroborate this, but I don't have any of them. It's one of the things that you'll see when you go around and look at Churchward stuff is in his books, he cites a lot of sources, but a lot of these sources are not really reachable by us. So just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, these are some things he cites throughout over the course of 5 of his 5 books. The Lhasa records, which are a tablet thing as well. The Popol Vuh.
Okay.
The Plutarch's Life of Solon, which I think is also like a rare text. Just as a line, the works of 100 authors, and folk tales and legends, along with temple inscriptions. So some of these citations are very vague and unverifiable, mixed with these kind of texts that have these kind of scrupulous, unknown translations, or translations that people don't fully agree on. There is a lot of disputed texts or sources that are not easily verifiable in his sources. So that's a lot of the stuff he's pulling on.
Well, and that if somebody has stuff like that where you can't really verify any of the sources, the default thing you're supposed to do is just accept what they're saying at face value.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they know. Why would they be lying? And then another thing that I think I wanted to talk about this, because we've talked about this man before. Another guy that kind of corroborates things for Churchward after the fact is a man named Edgar Casey.
Oh, I know who Edgar Casey is, but go ahead.
So
I'm familiar. I've been thinking about doing an episode on Edgar Casey.
And supposedly Edgar Casey's psychic readings of the Akashic records back up a lot of Churchward's claims.
Okay. Wait, did we do an episode on Edgar Casey?
I think you've talked about him a little bit before, maybe in the Akashic records episode.
Maybe. I think also there is another person who claimed that we did an episode about, who maybe claimed to almost be like a I don't want to say student. Maybe they were a student of Edgar Casey, or they were given similar powers as Edgar Casey. But I don't know whether we've done Edgar Casey himself.
Yeah, fair. Well, if we haven't, we should, because he's a pretty wild individual.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
So yeah, they supposedly so here it is. So James Churchward met Augustus Le Plongeon and his wife Alice in 1885, at that point Le Plongeon had just spent 12 years exploring the Yucatan, so he was very in the Mu stuff when he met Le Plongeon. But what's weird about that is that means that supposedly he, in the quote official canon, Le Plongeon is not the guy that introduced Churchward to Mu. Mu was known to Churchward before he met Le Plongeon, which is kind of a weird retroact. It feels like a weird retcon, to me,
retconning.
Like, oh no, I learned about it from these like ancient texts in an Indian monastery before I met the guy that like quote invented it. You know, that seems kind of sketchy
it
to me.
feels, yeah, I agree.
So they started to take some of these, throughout the 1870s and the little bit of time after, James Churchward took these various expeditions to New Zealand, to the South Seas, Eastern Asia, a place called the Lakoff Island, near, and some places near Samoa, and like all. So he started traveling a lot, and this is where he started to pick up some of the kind of. I think it's where he started to like formulate some of these, because whenever he talks about the books came out in like 1932 to 1936 and his death. But all of the books reference the fact that he's been doing this research for like between 40 and 60 years. And so he's supposedly like, these are books that are just now being able to be released to the world, but have been being written for decades. It's that kind of energy, you know, where they're trying to make the books seem more important by saying that they're these long labored, detailed, well-researched, corroborated, you know, like there's this false bravado to them. And so like, even though the timeline basically just gets a little weird for me, I guess is what I'm saying, is like how he started getting into Mu versus Plongeon versus this like Indian guy that he supposedly saw this crazy shit from. Like it just is, it kind of stinks a little bit to me.
I wonder. I need to figure out what was going around in, because this guy was British, right?
Yep.
What was going around in Europe that created interest in lost continent stories? Because if I'm remembering correctly, during the rise of the Nazi Party, when there was some of that mysticism stuff going on, they also had people who were down with the lost continent theory.
Oh yeah, Blavatsky's big on Lemuria.
So like, I just wonder. I think there's definitely truth to the whole. There's certain mythologies that will just persist because of what, you know, what they can say about our history or what they can say about our current culture, whatever you want. But I feel like there has to be another thing going on in Europe at this time that would make lost continent stuff popular.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking like you can meet anybody, you can meet these people who will die on the hill of a particular subject in Forteana or just the world of weird. It's like, I'll die on the hill of UFOs, or more specifically, I'll die on the hill of like this abductee and their experience, or I'll die on the hill of the existence of Bigfoot. You don't run into too many people these days. I know they have to exist. You don't run into too many people these days who are, I'm going to die on the hill of X lost continent.
Yeah,
as much. I
think like
maybe Atlantis more than others, but
yeah, there's some of that. There's also, I almost wonder if like Hollow Earth, like the whole an Antarctic ice wall stuff has almost replaced it. Like the Admiral Byrd shit has like taken over.
Yeah.
Because that has a similar energy of like this thing that is long ago and hidden. And now, but that one adds the tenor of, oh, the governments are working together to keep us away from it, which I think is pretty potent for these types.
True.
So yeah. I just wonder if that's like, because we talk about how aliens have shifted as society has shifted over time, and like these different theories kind of reflect the tenor of the culture. And like it makes me wonder if the lost continent thing has kind of shifted, and now like ancient aliens and the Antarctic ice shelf have taken over in some way.
Yeah. You know, this was also, I think, the Hollow Earth stuff would have been a flavor of science fiction during that time period too.
Yep.
And given the connections to lost societies and lost continent stuff, maybe that's also heavily informing it too.
Yeah.
That's shit. Good. You bring up a good point, Nile.
All this stuff,
as always.
I love looking at. My favorite part of this show is looking at these things as like, and putting them in their time context.
Yeah.
It because so much of like, oh, why is Space Brothers a thing? Oh, of course, like it's because society is like terrified of nuclear proliferation at that point.
Yeah.
It's
The cultural context of this stuff often is very revealing. I have that fucking book that I really need to read because I feel like it will help elucidate some of this. Tanner Boyle's Science Fiction in the Fortean.
Mm-hmm.
I have that book, and I'm assuming that's going through the history of science fiction alongside Forteana generally.
Yeah. That sounds
I bet you
wonderful.
That would be pretty. I got to read that so I can bring some of that stuff to the show.
Yeah.
And if he happens to be listening, I don't think he is. But if Tanner Boyle wants to come on the show, I think he should come on our show and chat with us about this stuff sometime. Just throwing that out there. Anyways.
So let's talk a little bit about Mu proper, because we've talked a lot about Churchward and everything.
Sure. Yeah.
So the civilization is approximately 200,000 years old. And then the continent flooded and there was a cataclysm kind of thing for it about 12 to 14,000 years ago. So it had a pretty long run. They were a very advanced society. They supposedly had about 63 to 64 million people at the time of the destruction of Mu. So they had a pretty large population. And those were scattered across multiple major cities that were very advanced, had like large buildings, had all that kind of stuff that you would expect from an ancient advanced civilization. And they had like, democracy. They had all this they had all of the intellectual stuff that people want to put on ancient civilizations. So like all the shit you hear about Atlantis, Mu, probably people will talk about that too here.
Sure.
So that like here's some stuff. This is just from some summaries of the various volumes of his book. The first volume is called The Lost Continent of Mu, and he sets out his theory of, quote, utilizing a vast knowledge of science, ancient art, and history, mythology, and the occult to recreate the splendor and doom of this hidden antediluvian world. The Garden of Eden was not in Asia, but on a now sunken continent in the Pacific Ocean. The biblical story of creation came first not from the peoples of the Nile or the Euphrates Valley, but from this now submerged continent, Mu, the motherland of man.
So we can scientify a biblical story, basically.
So then the second one is the children of Mu, and it's about 63 million people lived on the now lost continent of Mu 200,000 years ago. The children of Mu became the most influential people on Earth. America was one of the first colonies of Mu.
So they came here.
Yeah, supposedly that's where you get the I believe that's where you get the Mount Shasta connection.
Okay.
Which is
right.
I talked about that more in the Lemuria episode.
Yeah.
So that
I forgot about that. That's so funny.
They hang out inside Mount Shasta in California and like influence society from there,
Yeah. I forgot about that.
They were quote free from stress and disease and lived to be hundreds of years old, developing their ESP abilities through the nearly 40,000 years of societal practice and experimentation.
Okay, so they're elves.
Basically,
they're just Tolkien's elves.
Well, Kyle, they also are primarily socially a vegetarian, agricultural, outdoor, organic culture that worked in harmony with nature and the land, having little use for scientific technology.
These are just straight up elves.
Yeah.
Did somebody read Lord of the Rings and think that's a great idea?
When did Lord of the Rings come out?
Early 1900s. Lord of the Rings. I also was thinking to myself, like, when did we really start excavating Pompeii?
Mm-hmm.
Because Pompeii seems like a touch point that you could look at and go, there is a precedent in our history for like a lost civilization, basically. Maybe not on the same scale. 1954. So by the way,
these books predate Lord of the Rings by like 20 years.
Okay, so the original story, The Hobbit, is from 1937.
That's the year of the guy's death, or after his death.
Oh, okay. So
he died in 36.
Wow. But surely, I can't imagine Tolkien's getting that idea from nowhere either.
Oh no,
right?
they're both pulling from probably
they're
similar
pulling from the
things.
same place, probably.
Yeah.
But I was also looking up in Pompeii, like excavations started in, I think, like the 18th century. So we would have had Pompeii. But the fact of the matter is, apparently World War I and World War II disrupted our ability to get in there and work on Pompeii. So it was like after World War II, we really earnestly got back in there to. So I was just trying to think, like, maybe stories of Pompeii were in the air. I don't know. And I just looked it up, and yeah, I think that would have been well established.
Yeah, I feel like there was a pretty good, like, at that point, it was a lot of like, let's go excavate old cultures was like a thing, like that people wanted to look into the Egyptians and
well, it goes hand in hand with the whole, explorer thing, too, which is still, it's kind of on its way out, but it's still. Clearly, when these guys are doing their thing, they self-identified explorers or whatever. So, yeah.
So, continuing some stuff here. The third book is The Sacred Symbols of Mu, which is the strange true story of the occult origins of ancient and modern religions. So, in this one, of course, you do find out that stuff like the Lord's Prayer can be found in the sacred inspired writings of Mu. Jesus condensed the text, one of these texts, into the languages of his day. So Jesus got all of his teachings from Mu as well, and
okay.
And also the Ten Commandments are just a distillation by Moses of the Osirian religion's 42 questions. So like we're getting a lot of like okay, Christianity is just taking all of its stuff from this ancient religion. And like but they're like in a way that this is the true thing, which like it's wild how many of these fucking books come back to Jesus. It's so common.
Just because it's providing this idea of like real world examples of the things that are in the Bible, it doesn't like. It's not like atheistic. It's sort of like, oh, this should be affirming.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it feels like. I mean, do we have any indication on whether these guys were devout Christians? Like,
I believe that he was.
It would make sense.
Yeah, I believe that there was some of that in there. He's not writing it to dispel the Christian faith. I don't believe so.
Imagine that you have some sort of way to scientifically analyze and reveal the exact events and things that transpired at the crucifixion of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't dispel your Christian. It wouldn't be atheistic. And by the way, we have that. It's called the chronovisor.
Yeah, that they did that. Father Ernetti, what was that guy's name? Oh man, I wish I could pull that.
Ernetti's little hand or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the dumb name we had for that episode was.
Yeah,
I found that really funny at the time. So sometimes you pop yourself on this show; it just happens. The fourth and fifth volumes are book 1 and 2 of the Cosmic Forces of Mu, and this is where Churchward really goes off on one, such as that biological evolution is a myth and atomic force doesn't exist. All disease can be conquered by using appropriately colored light rays.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and yeah, like he really
But this is information he's getting from the ancient texts on Mu.
Yeah, this is all from Mu, supposedly. Sure. Because this is the cosmic forces of Mu. So like over the course of 5 books, he really kind of takes on all of the things that people really hold dear, like science, religion, politics, all those things. So you can learn a lot. Go pick up the hardcover deluxe edition from 1996, which for some reason that is just really funny to me that this guy, this like weirdo writer from the 1930s got a fucking deluxe reissue that's
bizarre.
Fascinating.
And hearing this though doesn't it makes me think about truthism.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who's sitting there at the computer in the 90s writing about how science is a liar, religion is a liar, all these things are liars. Here's the truth. It's still Christian truth.
Yep.
But it's me telling you that version of the Christian truth. I mean, it's just... So this is the 1930s equivalent of that, it feels like.
Yeah.
To me.
So there are some, like a couple little just tangents. Like one is there were supposedly 7 major cities in ancient Mu and Lemuria. And he supposedly identified one of them. It's a place called Non Madal on Pohnpei Island, not Pompeii, Pohnpei, which is in the North Pacific Ocean. And this is a place that they found various like walls and stuff built out of large stone blocks. And it supposedly, they looked at how old this stuff is, and it's from fucking forever ago. So he was very certain that this is the remains of one of the ancient cities of Mu that just happens to be on an island in the Pacific Ocean. I think I mentioned this earlier. Depending on where you look, sometimes it's in the Pacific and sometimes it's in the Atlantic, and then it kind of went back. So it started in the Pacific, then got moved to the Atlantic, then eventually it settled back in the Pacific.
Sort of bouncing around.
Yeah, and that also kind of joins in with whether or not, because like some people think Mu is Atlantis, some people think Mu is Lemuria, some think it's a third thing altogether. And it
secret third thing.
Exactly. Literally a secret third thing. And so the exact location of it differs there. So like I think a running theory with Churchward for a while was like Hawaii and a lot of those islands were remnants of Mu. Basically any grouping of islands, people will try to link to some ancient civilization because if a continent is sunken, little chunks of it would stay up as islands.
Oh,
of course.
Sure. It might like float up, and yeah, that makes sense.
And also, like, I think a thing that is just worth noting is that we didn't have the full plate tectonics theory when these books were being written. So he was looking at it as these like kind of tides underneath the crust. Like he was working with the prevailing theories of the time, which were not quite full-blown plate tectonics. So there's like this stuff about this like gaseous release of between these like underground currents kind of things.
Yeah,
that
the Earth do be farting.
Exact. Like there's there are these theories that like he thinks that is what caused the cataclysm. Is like this basically a sort of volcanic eruption,
huge.
By way of this kind of shifting under the crust. But it's kind of based on wrong science, so it doesn't really track. Not that you would expect it to anyway.
Not that matters.
But it's just another like side effect of all this stuff that I think is kind of interesting.
Earth and ass wind.
Yeah. And then like a big thing that he does is try to link like any megalithic structure or massive ancient thing to being a remnant of one of these, like basically any pyramid across the earth he tries to link to Mu in some way.
Well, he's just ahead of the game if that's the case, because that's what everybody fucking does.
Yeah, he really like Atlantis is probably the true blueprint for all this stuff. But Mu and Lemuria are close behind in terms of like refining what is now like the baseline thing for like ancient aliens. These are all trial runs, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Underground volcanic gases expanded and pushed the landmass above sea level. That's what caused Mu to exist. And then finally, it was destroyed in one night when a series of earthquakes caused volcanic eruptions that sunk it back down again. So that doesn't quite track with plate tectonics, but does kind of work in the time.
I just like really love the idea that it's like, yeah, sometimes just entire continents just get destroyed by the way the earth is.
Yep.
Like, not that we don't have natural disasters, but that is just like on a scale of like cataclysmic around the globe. Like you could live anywhere and you could just die at any moment because of the way this version of the science is structured. And I want to look at that person from 1930 and be like, how does that make you feel about God? That I just want that answer. That's interesting.
So after Churchward's death, the theory didn't totally disappear. There have been various people throughout history since then that have tried to pick up the kind of Mu Lemuria ball and run with it. Specifically, it did get roped into a lot of the ancient alien stuff eventually in the 50s and 60s. But like even in the 1930s, there's a guy named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who is the founder of the Turkish Republic. Because he thought that Mu was a possible location of the original homeland of the Turks.
I have seen this before. I don't remember where I read that, but I have read that before.
Yeah. And he like,
That's so good.
There were some people say that it wasn't that big of an interest, but then other like supposedly there was a Department of Mu language at one of their universities for a bit. And other people think that it was kind of exaggerated because he had books written about the continent by people there. So like it almost seemed like kind of a marketing ploy in some ways to say this, but it at least got some interest. Then also like Theosophist William Scott Elliott was kind of worked on it a bit, along with author James Bramwell, who published his works Lost Atlantis in 1937. So like there were these other people that kind of tried to write about Mu in times after it, but no one ever seemed to commit to it as hard as James Churchward did after that. So, yeah, that kind of wraps it up. I think eventually I might do a dive on Blavatsky and the whole like Hollow Earth, ancient civilization. But then you have to talk about like her fucking whole thing about the races and like the kind of father races and stuff, which is like so uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I think we could do it. I think we could talk about
root race. That's what they call it.
Fine. It's just, Blavatsky is impossible not to bump up against in so many of the things that we do. We have to get the context on her. I mean, I know a lot about her now. I've since watched some stuff on her and read some stuff on her. So I know a good amount about her. But yeah, we do have to talk about some uncomfortable stuff. It is what it is. We've talked about uncomfortable stuff before. I believe in our ability to handle that. But yeah, she's just too important to the new age and a lot of like Western versions of mysticism and stuff. Her name is just way too associated with that stuff for us to not tell her story.
Yeah. So
but yeah.
That's like we could go on to some stuff. She took a lot of Plongeon stuff and ran with it, and kind of tied that into her root races theory. But that will be for another episode. So I guess on that note, do you want to do a big question?
Yeah, I'm down for a big question.
All right. So as we know, a lot of Churchward's research into Mu was funded by his patents in steel manufacturing and defending those patents in the U.S. court system. So if you had to subsidize your research into a long-forgotten society by getting into business making some form of commodity, what would that be?
Coca-Cola.
You think Coca-Cola is a commodity? All right.
It's I mean, okay, fair. When you the way you phrased it, I just thought it would be cool to have Coca-Cola subsidize all my shit, because then cool. I could just like, it would be really cool is the word I would probably
it would be way better than a lot of the paramilitary operations they've funded in the past.
But didn't they? Yeah. Well, so then I could put a big Coca-Cola, like this expedition for Atlantis sponsored by Cherry Coke.
Yeah.
So I get to win on a couple different ways. First of all, they get to advertise their Cherry Coke, which is the best beverage they've ever made.
I don't know. I think I'm going to hold out for Surge to sponsor mine.
Oh, but that's... I mean, okay, fine. You can have Surge. I want Cherry Coke.
Fair.
I get to drink all the Cherry Coke I want on my expedition. I'm going through a jungle somewhere, like with a machete, hacking and slashing, and then I pause, wipe my brow, and take a big swig of Cherry Coke.
Remember the fucking...
And there aren't even any cameras on me. I'm just doing that.
Yeah. Do you remember the kind of artsy fartsy logo for Cherry Coke where the can was kind of splatter painty?
Yes, I do. And they're going to bring that back for my expedition.
I was going to say, can you get them to make you like a coat that's like printed with that design?
That would be the ultimate swag.
Yeah.
So yes,
I mean,
that's also
make it worthwhile, Coke. Come on.
Look, I'm going to be revealing the secrets of Lost Atlantis. Coke is going to be at my beck and call. Whatever I want, Coke's going to get it done.
We're finally going to get that third flavor of Vault.
Yeah. When I say jump, they say, how high, and would you like another Cherry Coke?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, yes. I would like another Coke. Now, again, putting it as a commodity, I mean, the way you phrased it made it sound a little weird, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Coke is a commodity, and it's a vital one. It's the lifeblood of the American.
I can't really debate that. I will say like this question came from a weird. Have you ever watched the movie Trading Places?
I think maybe. Yeah.
That whole movie is based around they're trading in like pork belly futures and like soybeans and shit. And so I had this weird crossover in my brain between reading stuff about Churchward like battling steel patents and that movie. So I was like, I think I just want to like
invest in pork futures.
Yeah, I think pork belly futures. Like, I think people really like pork belly, and like, you know, as ramen becomes more popular, that's a pork belly topping. I think that pork belly is a really good way to go for subsidizing my search for the lost continent of Mu. I am going to do Mu because I think that it's
okay.
It's the secret other third thing, and I think that's why.
That's true. And people aren't going to expect it. It's sort of like a reversal of not a reversal. It's you're tapping into the power of the eat more chicken idea from that one restaurant.
Chick-fil-A?
So it's like, well, because you're looking for Moo, which is the sound a cow makes.
Yeah.
And all the homophobes over at Chick-fil-A are like counting their homophobic money. Mm-hmm. They're like, you know, oh, this is what we got. We made $1 million from being weird fucking bigots about our chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a similar energy, which I shouldn't accuse you of. But no, it's like the eat more chicken thing, you know, with the cows.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm searching for Moo. And they're like, wow, I bet you want to talk about beef futures. And you're like, we're about pork on this expedition. Hey, have you noticed how a lot of our humor boils down to ironic advertising?
It is.
Have you picked up on that?
It has become kind of a crutch for us. I do think so. Like,
it is a little bit of a crutch. I got to stop doing it, but I do want the Cherry Coke sponsorship. So
yeah,
I'll stop after they reach out to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people, us making jokes about being sponsored by things is less harmful than any of the supplements a lot of other conspiracy things sell. So
that's fair.
I think that like we're allowed, is what I'm saying.
I just think about how I've been trained to like occasionally talk about products and how somebody else, because I have a platform, hears me talk about that product. They go, wow, I could really go for a Cherry Coke, and I influence like 3 people.
Yeah. And they say, I'd buy that for $1.
And they say, I'd buy that for $1. And then they go to the machine, they're like, $2.50 for a Cherry Coke?
Yeah.
And then they shell up $3, get 50 cents back in change, drink a Cherry Coke, are still thirsty. And I just wasted their goddamn hard-earned money, and I think about that.
They should do a shot-for-shot remake of RoboCop, but just update that ad for inflation.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then they could insert the Fatal Farm recreation of the guy getting his dick
shot.
Well,
they'll really luxuriate in that scene. They'll get Zack Snyder and Michael Bay to co-direct that scene, and it'll be the wildest thing you've ever seen.
Have you seen the Fatal Farm RoboCop movie? Okay.
Not the full thing. I've seen the scene you're talking about and a couple other things. I've seen clips of it.
I'm saying we just put that whole scene in there, slot it in. Rest of the movie's recreated with inflation, right? But then that scene, just that scene. I will say, very not safe for work.
I was going to say. If you want to find this movie, Google RoboCop inflation. All right.
That's good.
That's a good thing to end this episode on. Do you want to take care of some business, Kyle?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if you want to find us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And go and check out any podcatcher you use. We're probably going to be on it. So look up It Gets Weird wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll be right there.
Oh my God. Where the hell are we? We're at Twitter.
We're at Blue
IGW Podcast. We're at Blue Sky. We're trying to use Twitter less, but on Blue Sky, we're just It Gets Weird, which is fantastic. We've secured that username. We're also on twitch.tv/itgetsweird, where right now I am playing through Pokemon Fire Red, doing a Nuzlocke run with our good friend of the show, Colin. And that has been a lot of fun. We had a really good stream this last weekend, so please come check it out. It's a lot of fun. email us. If you want your email read, and we had some good emails recently, hit us up at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Just let us know how we should address you. And if your email's good, we'll read it out loud on the show. And you could be a piece of the show in that way. And a piece in our stomachs after we eat it. But most importantly, check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $1 tier. The $1 tier is just a tip tier. That's just a tier of you saying, hey, thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1. But if you want all the bonus content that your grubby little hands could fucking scrounge up, the $2 tier and the $5 tier are for you. At the $2 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV, where every other week, Nile and I are talking about weird television. Right now, we are in the death throes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're almost done with that show. Cannot wait to find out what Nile thinks of the very last couple episodes of Evangelion. That'll be very interesting. So check that out at the $2 tier. And you get to vote what weird television we watch next. We've watched a lot of good stuff, including The X-Files, Supernatural, lots of fun stuff. And you get to help us vote on what we watch the next time for the next season. But if you want the most bang for your buck, you're going to want to check out the $5 tier. At the $5 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV, plus in its off weeks, you get World of Weird, where Nile and I talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. It's a lot of tangents. Sometimes we talk World of Weird Fortiana stuff. Sometimes we do a lot of movie and music talk and just art and life talk. It's all kinds of stuff. Whatever we're feeling like talking about, that's going to be on the World of Weird. And you get a huge back catalog of bonus content at the $5 tier and the $2 tier. But again, $5 tier, best bang for your buck. You're going to get the most out of it. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own private Patreon feed. And you get access to the Discord, where we're hanging out chatting with our listeners, I should say. I've been reading too much about the web these last couple days, and users just kind of came out naturally.
Yeah.
You get Discord, where we're hanging out chatting with listeners like you directly. It's a great time. We've been sharing a lot of fun stuff. I know recently we were talking about the AOL search logs leak, which is one of the funniest things on the internet from the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get in on all those kinds of fun conversations, you're going to have to check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. But if you can't donate, we get it. Sometimes money's tight. Sometimes you can't spare a couple bucks for the best podcast around. Just please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.